Hello, and welcome to episode 48 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a weekly chit-chat all about the joys of sock knitting. My name is Andy, and like every time I take a break for a week, it feels super weird to sit back down and record again. But nonetheless, I like to make socks, so let's talk about making socks. If you wanted to find me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, Purlbug. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to any patterns or anything that I mention, or shops or anything like that, if you're watching this in the embedded video on the blog or on the Ravelry channel, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, down in the description box below, there will be a link to the blog post for this episode where everything will be linked. Whew. I am currently recording on Sunday, November 20th at about 10:30 in the morning. So I figured I would go ahead and get this out of the way so that I didn't fall into the trap that I did last week where, I let Sunday get away from me. And then, because it gets dark so early now, after daylight savings time, like there is no option of recording on Mondays, like by the time I get home, by the time I even think about leaving work, it is dark. So I was like, okay, this week I'm going to make sure I get recording. So what we'll talk about this week is finished objects, works in progress, what's coming up next, some adventures in dyeing that I haven't shown you guys, another little DIY project that I'm doing. We'll talk about the knit along, question of the week, and then chit chat. So finished object. This, in a way, this could be thought of as a half object, but I'm counting it as a finished object. And if you follow me on Instagram, you will have already seen this by now, because I just posted a picture of it before I sat down to record. But this is my very first handmade Christmas stocking. So I decided that this year, because Wesley and I have no Christmas decorations of our own, last year we didn't really even do anything, I don't think, for Christmas because one, we had no money, and two, I think I've talked about this before, but when you're in kind of the academic world, Christmas really sneaks up on you because, it's like you have Thanksgiving and then there's 2 weeks left of the semester. So then it's crunch time and then it's finals. And then it's like, oh my gosh, now it's December 20th, so typically we haven't really decorated, but this year we're making more of an effort. So I said that I was going to make a stockings. So this is the first one. And I'm trying to think of something to give you a sense of scale for it. Okay, this is my phone. This is a Samsung Galaxy S5, which is roughly the same size as an iPhone 6. So that's sort of a sense of scale on how big this guy is. So it's not huge, but it's not small either. And this was made on US size 9s, which are a 5.5 millimeter needle. These are, I think these are Knitter's Pride, maybe? I forget. They're a pair of wooden needles that I got forever ago, and it's one of the ones with the big long cables. So this I made magic looping, which I actually have found that I don't hate magic looping as much for something big like this as I seem to for something small like socks. Go figure. But yeah, US size 9, and the yarn that I used is a bulky yarn. It is Loops and Threads Charisma. So Loops and Threads is sort of the Michael's house brand of yarn. So this is Charisma. Let's see if I can do this without hitting the microphone. Charisma. It's a bulky yarn. It's classified as a 5, and it's 100% acrylic. 100% acrylic. It's 100 meters to 100 grams. So I mean, it's a pretty chunky yarn. But yeah, it's 100% acrylic just because I wasn't really sure how much yarn this was going to take, and this stuff was cheap, and I figured that way if I have to go back and buy more, then I'm not going to be out a ton of money. And because these are going to be stored for most of the year, I didn't want to risk bugs getting to them and eating holes in them. So I figured, this is one of those cases where acrylic yarn is probably the best option. So like you can see, I did not use all of the color. But yeah, so this is the color that was used for this one. This is color J11, which is Forest. And then the lighter part for the cuffs and toes is same yarn, but this is color J09, which is Off-White. And then I will be making, so this one is Wesley's. This is his. And then I will be making mine out of this purple yarn, which is still the Charisma in the color J03, dark purple. So, and it's not quite as dark as it's showing up on camera, but it is like a nice sort of deep purpley color. But yeah, I had actually originally picked out something that was like variegated and I think had like purple and lime green. And Wesley was like, can we please try to stick to the same color scheme? So he convinced me to go with something a little more tame. But yeah, the pattern that I used for this was sort of an adaptation on the Rye pattern, which is a free pattern for worsted weight socks, which I will of course link. I basically cast on the largest size number of stitches, which is 48. And of course theirs is, worsted weight yarn on much smaller needles. So I was using a bulky yarn on much bigger needles. But yeah, I cast on 48 stitches, just followed their pattern for the garter ridge or the garter stitch thing down the front, and did a fish lips kiss heel, and then just kind of my normal rounded toe. So yeah, to make this, like I said, I cast on 48 stitches on those US size 9s. I knit 10 rows of 2x2 ribbing. I did 15 garter ridges, and then I did the heel, and then I did another 10 garter ridges, and then I did my toe, which I think has left me with a very pleasing proportion for a Christmas stocking. Christmas stockings don't really kind of follow the same style rules as like normal socks. So I think this will be very cute. And I think the garter ridging or the garter stitch on the front really helps because it kind of pulls the front in a little bit, which makes it look not quite so awkward when it's, just kind of hanging like this. So yeah, I knit this all yesterday. I cast it on yesterday morning and I finished it up yesterday night. So it was a nice quick knit. It was very fun because I haven't knit with bulky yarn in a long, long time. I don't know when I'm going to do the second one. I might wait until next weekend to do it, or I might do it in bits and pieces over the week. But yeah, that's that. So very fun, very pleased with it. And it's so squishy. It's just so soft and squishy. I love it. So yeah, that's my finished object / sort of a half object because there's another one that needs to get made. But then my work in progress is what I am calling my quantum socks. And I shared a picture of this one on Instagram, so again, if you follow me there, you've already seen this. But this is the one that's finished, and then I have one that is underway. But this is using yarn from PhD Yarns, and this is one of their quantum dot kits. So it's an 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon yarn, and it's the quantum dots, sort of colorway. So it's this very like speckly sort of dye. And this is the rest of it. And so the quantum dot kits come with, kind of the main yarn, and then they also come with a 10-gram skein of one contrasting color, and then a 5-gram skein of a second contrasting color. So this one came with this sort of pretty turquoisey blue and then a hot bright pink. And so I chose to use the turquoisey blue for the cuffs, and then I did a 5-row stripe of hot pink on the top, and then a 5-row stripe of hot pink just before I did the toe. This one is made on US size zeros, which are a 2mm needle. It's a 72 stitch sock. I had originally been planning on doing this as a Hermione's Everyday sock. And then, because I thought that texture pattern would really complement sort of the speckly nature of this yarn. But then I got maybe about 10 rows in, and it just, because of the speckle pattern of the yarn, the texture pattern was just getting completely lost. So I decided to just go ahead and do a vanilla sock, just really highlight the yarn itself. So yeah, heel flap and gusset on this one. Yeah, it's a pretty long leg. The leg is just about as long as the foot, just because for whatever reason, that's what I've been liking right now. I never used to do that. I think maybe because it's winter and now I want a little bit longer socks, but yeah, so that's that one. And then the second one, I am about 40 rows into the leg. So I'm about halfway through the leg on this one. And I've actually just been keeping place with just like plain little lobster claws. So like I mark off every 10 stitches with those little lobster claws without anything attached to them, just so I can easily count off every 10 stitches. So yeah, that's my work in progress. I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm really, really loving this yarn. It is just so soft, and it's just so, because of like the speckled nature of it, like there's no pooling or anything. It's just, is a very nice, pretty variegated yarn with like this one, being mainly blue and white, but it has like just those little bitty pops of pink, which my camera isn't apparently focusing on, but I just really, really love it. And I am having a very good time knitting these. So yeah, that's that. So that's one work in progress. My other work in progress is my super secret project, which I can't really talk about on here, like I said the last time I recorded, because this is a gift for someone I know. But I will update the project page both on my blog and on Ravelry with the latest picture. I haven't made as much progress on this as I would like to, just because I haven't been knitting on it as much as I would like to. But hopefully I will get that done soon and liberate the needles that this is on, because, you know, they are a pair of needles that I want to do other things with. So yeah, that's that. In terms of what's coming up next, I don't really know right now. I've been just very busy, and so I'm trying to just kind of take it like one day at a time and really just, you know, when I finish my quantum dot socks and the super secret project, I will just kind of see what comes up next. I promised Wesley a pair of socks made out of some brown yarn that I need to make for him sooner rather than later. I also really want to, you know, do those broken linen stitch socks that I've been talking about, but who knows? Who knows? But yeah. I also had mentioned last week that I was going to be doing some holiday knitting, and I decided that I am not doing any holiday knitting. After this is done, I am doing no more gift knitting for the year. I think I was letting myself kind of get caught up in this idea that like I needed to make a bunch of Christmas gifts for people, even though I'm spending about $1,000 to come home for Christmas, which, you know, that's enough. And I'm just gonna free myself from any kind of obligation of feeling like I need to also make Christmas gifts for people. So, let's see. While I'm talking about projects, I feel like I should mention this just in the sake of full disclosure. So if you remember back to when we first started doing the colorwork stuff, I had attempted to make a pair of, I think they were the Fireweeds socks, and I was doing it with my hand-dyed yarn in purple, and then just like a natural sort of, the natural BFL with undyed. And I feel like I should mention that I have now frogged that start of a sock. Oh, hair. Ugh. I've now frogged it because it just was not going to happen. It was never going to happen. I was not happy with the way the knitting looked on it, and I just would rather have the yarn for something else. So, I mean, this is not all of the purple yarn. The rest is balled up and put away with the rest of my yarn, which is over there. This is just what was in the sock itself. So, yep, this yarn has been rescued and reclaimed and will be used for something else. So, just, you know, thought I should let you guys know. But yeah, that's that. Let's talk a little bit about some dyeing that I've done. And I actually did this quite a while ago, which again, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen this already, but I haven't actually been able to show it here because I think I did it after the last time I recorded, and then of course I didn't record last week. So this is my very first skein of Christmas yarn that I've dyed. And so this was dyed entirely using food coloring, which is a new thing for me as well. I've, you know, usually done most of my stuff using Kool-Aid, and then maybe adding a little bit of food coloring if I really want to like amp up a certain color, or if I want to do blue, which is just impossible to find blue Kool-Aid. But this one I did entirely using food coloring. And so this one is, if I can get it, okay. So this one has 2 spots of each color on it, right? So it's got 2 spots of green, 2 spots of red, and then white in between. And so I am very excited to see how this knits up, because, you know, it's Christmas colors and it's fun. And like I said, I'm trying to get more into Christmas this year. Also, I have no idea how people wind their skeins. This is how I do it, and it apparently is not a very efficient way because my skeins sometimes come out looking nice and sometimes come out looking very janky like this one is. But so if you have any tips on how to do that, let me know. But yeah, so I'm super excited for this one. This one, obviously, I would like to get knitted up, you know, before Christmas, so I can actually wear my Christmas socks before Christmas. I have really screwed this up. Okay, I will redo that later. I would like to be able to wear them before Christmas. So that is definitely, you know, one of the higher ones on my list of like yarn to get knitted up next. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And I do wish the red had come out just a little bit more red. Like it's very red and it's showing up pretty true to life on camera, but I wish it had just been more red. I don't know. But I'm also very happy with kind of the way the green came out. The green does not look correct on camera. It is definitely a much more yellow green in real life than what it's showing up as. It's showing up a little bit more blue than it is. But yeah, pretty pleased with it. So yay. yeah, and I think I'm gonna pause and save, and then I'll come back and talk about the rest of the stuff that is yarn related. I also really needed a drink of water. So, and while I was, in case you're new here, I do those little breaks because sometimes my computer doesn't like to save things properly. And so that way the file size doesn't get too big before it tries to save it. And if it isn't going to save it, I know soon, before I've recorded the whole thing. But anyway, I had to grab a drink of water too. And I managed to get my yarn rewound up into a somewhat aesthetically pleasing skein. So yay, go me. Now my nose is itchy. Anyway, so let's talk about my other little project before we talk about the knit along. So I am totally in love with the idea of the opal with the idea of the opal advent calendars, where it's like the little tiny mini skeins, and it's like so cute. And so, this year I was like, oh, that'd be fun to do. So I went around looking around for, how much it would be to buy one. And it seems like they're very expensive. Like I saw, I think one place maybe I saw it for like $50, and another place I was seeing it for close to like $90. And I don't know, because Opal is a European brand, I don't know if some of those places where I was seeing it for less was maybe because, they're overseas and then it was going to cost a whole bunch more to ship it over here. But basically, it was not going to be cheap, which, I mean, I could kind of expect. But, even $50 is a little bit more than I would really want to pay for that, because I would wind up just using it to make a pair of scrap yarn socks out of it. And like $50 for one pair of socks, even though it's like kind of about the experience and the fun part of it, is a little steep for me. So, I think like if I had the money, I would get it in a second, believe me. But I was like, okay, what's a cheaper way I can do this? So I decided to make my own little mini advent calendar. And it's still, in progress, because obviously this is not the cutest way to do this. But basically what I did was I took 24 of, sort of my leftover sock yarn balls, and I wound off 5-gram little mini balls out of them. So like, they're just little cute little mini balls. And I am going to figure out some way to kind of put these in an advent calendar format. I know some places sell those like really cute rustic, like wooden, like kind of fill it yourself advent calendars, which I really love the idea of. But one, sometimes like the little boxes in them are too small. And two, that is then a physical thing that I have to store in our tiny apartment for the next 360-ish days of the year. So I'm not sure that is something I want to do, but I have been thinking about trying to find little boxes, like little, kind of fold up cardboard boxes that you'd put like party favors in. I had found something sort of like that at the dollar store near my apartment, but when I bought them, they're just like a little bit too flimsy, and like they're fine like if you wanted, like they're like these little tiny sort of like bags that you kind of fold up, and they're fine if you want to leave them open. But of course I want to close up the top because I don't want to know what I'm getting each day. And so they don't work so well for that. So I need to find some sort of little box, and I'm going to run to Target today and maybe I'll find something there. But basically, I'll put one ball of yarn in each box, and I'm probably going to pick up some candy to put in each of them too, so that Wesley has something every day. He didn't really like grow up with advent calendars, but he'll take candy every day for 24 days. But yeah, so this is kind of how I'm doing it, and I will probably, kind of depending on how I organize them in their little boxes, I will either have Wesley randomly put each one in each box, or I will assemble them and then have him randomly pick each box, and I'll number them 1 to 24. But basically so that, they're randomly sort of picked for the order. And I'm super excited about this because, for one thing, it's basically free except for the cost of the boxes and then the candy, of course, for Wesley. And like, these all mean something to me, like I have, like this is, the Plymouth Yarns Neon Now that I made the piece of my heart socks out of. And, this is what I made those Dreckenschwingen socks out of. So like, it'll be really fun each day when I open it up and I'm like, oh, this is that yarn that I made that thing out of. And it's sort of like a nice way to kind of wrap up the year and really, have a pair of socks made that are going to be super meaningful for me. Versus just something that I bought and looks cute, but it doesn't really mean anything. So I'm super excited about it. I had taken them to work because I have a scale there so that I can measure off 5 grams. So I've just brought them home today, and so now I will try and find a home for them, and then of course share once I get them put into their final format. But I am super duper excited about that. But yeah, that's that. And so let's talk about the knit along. I talked about the rules for the knit along in the last episode. So I will link below to like one of the threads for it that has the rules written out. But we already have 5 finished objects as of this morning, which is pretty good for being, just a little over halfway through the first month. And there's some socks and then there's some other things. So that's really fun, and I'm really enjoying this. And, it's kind of reminded me how many other things there are to knit. I've really enjoyed doing socks for this past year. And I definitely think that next year I will still make a lot of socks. But, doing, seeing the stuff in the finished object thread and like doing things like this that are, really different than what I've been doing has really kind of reminded me of what else is out there. And I'm super looking forward to next year when I plan to kind of broaden my focus a little bit. And I've already sort of been thinking about just in general, like goals for 2017 and like my knitting goals and all that, which kind of once I get those more formalized, I will be sure to share them. But yeah, anyway, it's been really fun and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm really enjoying kind of seeing the chatter going on. And I'm expecting that we will be seeing a lot of finished objects for this one. So yay, that'll be fun. So yeah, and then my question of the week sort of goes along with my question of the week last time where I asked if people were doing any gift knitting. My question of the week this week is, do you knit holiday specific items? So whether, if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's still sort of, I know a lot of people who aren't religious who still celebrate Christmas because just kind of as like the commercial and like social sort of holiday. Or, Hanukkah is this time of year too. Although I never can like figure out when Hanukkah starts. Like I'm always like, Hanukkah is somewhere around Christmas, right? So if you celebrate Hanukkah, please let me know when it starts this year so that I can wish people happy Hanukkah. And I know there's other, like winter holidays, there's like winter solstice and stuff, and Kwanzaa, but I'm not really sure about Kwanzaa either. And so I know there's other like winter holidays. And so, my question is like, do you knit Christmas things? Like, I've dyed up this Christmas yarn that I plan to make into Christmas socks. But of course, while I might wear Christmas socks other times of the year, it's kind of specifically meant for this season and this holiday. And I know a lot of other dyers like make Christmas yarn. And so my question is like, do you tend to knit those sorts of things? Like, do you knit a specific pair of like Christmas socks or Hanukkah socks or New Year's socks or winter solstice socks or whatever? Same could have been said for Halloween. Like I know a lot of people, knit kind of Halloween specific socks, which, those tend to be more of a year-round sort of colorway. Like it's not quite as much like red and green, that's for Christmas. A lot of people do that, and I sort of made those little fingerless mitts that were sort of Halloween themed, but I of course am still wearing them. So my question is like, do you knit holiday specific things? And if you do you wear them at other times of year? Are you rocking your Christmas socks in the middle of June, or do you tend to only wear them like maybe in December and you put them away for the rest of the year? I know I never used to be afraid to have like holiday themed socks and things when I was like when I buy them, because then it's so cheap that it's kind of like, whatever, if I only wear them once a year, it's no big deal. But especially with the time and sort of effort commitment that goes into like knitting things, holiday specific things definitely need to be more needed or wanted, I feel like, at that point. But what do you think? So yeah, that's going to be it for the knitting specific sort of stuff. So if that's all you were here for, thank you very much for hanging out with me this week, and I hope to see you next week. Otherwise, I guess we have 2 weeks of chit-chat to catch up on, but I will try and keep the chit-chat shorter because, for one thing, it's 2 weeks and I don't really remember what happened last week. And for another, like I said, I need to get some errands run today too, so I want to make sure I do that before it gets to be too late in the day. But nonetheless, let's talk about what's been going on in my life. Before I forget, I've talked before about how much I love like little wax melt things. So right now I've actually moved it out into like our little, our little hallway that's like out there so that it fills the entire apartment more. But right now I have one that's on that is these cinnamon ones. And like, I just picked this up at our local grocery store because like I don't know if they do this during the summer, but at least during like the colder months, they tend to have these things like super cheap. And I really love this because, like, to me, like, cinnamon is a very, like, you know, wintry sort of smell. And this is, like, a really good cinnamon. Like, it's, like, kind of one of those, like, very spicy smelling cinnamons. Like, it's not a sweet smelling cinnamon. And, oh, I just love it so much. Anyway, chit chat. So I guess right after kind of the day of the last episode going up, the last real episode going up was the election, which I don't want to talk about. That's not what this space is for. I don't want to talk about it here. Wesley and I did go and vote. We went and voted really, really early because, you know, we both have to go to work and do things. But it was busy. Like, I think we showed up at 6:30 maybe, because our polling place opened at 6 o'clock in the morning. And so I think we showed up at about 6:30 or 6:45, and there was already like a line. Like, we had to wait like 15 or 20 minutes to get up and vote. So it was very interesting. But yeah, we went and voted, and yeah, I don't want to talk about the rest of it. So yeah, what else have we been doing? We went, I think I talked about, you know, I've talked about like wanting to do more with like Christmas decorating this year and all of that. So like, not this, was it this past weekend or the weekend before? We've been out looking for Christmas trees, and we found a Christmas tree that we really loved at Target, and it's sort of like a like silvered like tinsel tree, but it's like very pretty. It's not as tacky as it sounds when I say it like that, but it's very pretty. But it's also like $150. And, you know, given that we are kind of starting from scratch with our Christmas decorations, because like I said, we don't have anything, you know, I just don't want to spend a ton of money on it. So like $150 is a lot to spend on a tree. So like we went and looked around at other places, and like the problem is like the ones that we really like, of course, are not cheap, and the cheap ones we don't like. And it's also tough because we don't have a lot of space. Like, it's a very small apartment. And so, you know, we're looking for something that either will fit kind of on top of our like table that we don't actually eat at. So, you know, we're either looking for something, you know, very small that will fit on top of the table, or we're looking for kind of one of those like tall, skinny trees. And there's just not a lot of options, and we just haven't really found anything that we love enough to pay what they want for it. So I'm hoping that we will sort this out soon, but yeah, we have been looking, and we've been looking at like Christmas lights and stuff too, and all of that, and like that's part of what I'm, you know, running to Target for today, is to like look at some of that stuff again, because like next weekend is now past Thanksgiving, so you know, it's really getting to the point where if we're gonna decorate, we need to get our butts in gear. But yeah, we've been doing that and just have not been able to find anything that we love yet, which is very frustrating. But I think it's part of it's just that like, you know, sort of like our eyes are bigger than our stomachs thing. Like we want things that we just can't really afford. Like the whole aesthetic that we want, we just can't really afford that, and that sucks. But yeah, so that's been something we've been doing. So I mentioned before that I work at Virginia Commonwealth University. So, and I think I've even mentioned that like my office is not in the same building where like the normal physics department is. And so I frequently will have to walk, you know, back and forth from my office to the physics department, sometimes a couple times a day. And so between my office and the physics department is this park that's in the middle called Monroe Park. And it's this big, pretty park, got lots of big, nice trees in it and everything. And I guess they've been planning for a while to do like some renovations on the park and stuff like that. And so like they just recently closed it down, like within the past week, they like closed the entire park off. And they gave us like 1 day's worth of notice. It was like, hey, by the way, guys, tomorrow the park is going to be closed. And, you know, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I knew they were planning this stuff, but like the bummer is that like I walk through that park, like it's a nice shortcut to get, you know, across to the physics building. And it's not just that like I can't walk through it anymore, like now they've made it hard to walk around it because the sidewalks along the edge are also closed off. So, you know, it just makes it a lot tougher. And so during the summer, the park had kind of become like a place where like a lot of homeless people were kind of living, I guess, you know, because it's a decent place for them to stay. And so there had kind of become this like little homeless village thing in the park. And some people had been saying that like they were going to clear out pretty soon anyway because it's getting cold, and like I guess there are shelters that open up during the winter that they can go to. And so some people were saying that they were just really biding their time until then, and then they were going to leave anyway. But of course, when they closed the park, they kicked everyone out of the park. And so then they kind of all moved across the street to where this church is that sort of like will let them be out front. And like, and a lot of this is just me being like, from the suburbs and stuff like that. But like, I had not spent a lot of time around like truly homeless people until I went to school at Nebraska. Like that was my first encounter with like really homeless people. And even that was not as bad as it is here. And so like they do kind of make me uncomfortable and creep me out a little bit. And like I'm working on that. Like that's something that I'm trying to fix. But like part of it's just how I was, where I grew up and stuff. But like I did feel really bad this time because like, these aren't like panhandlers or something. Like these aren't just annoying people like asking for money, which we also get here a lot. And that really annoys me because it's like, can I not just walk 10 feet without like getting asked for money by someone? But anyway, these people are truly homeless. Like they really have nowhere else to go. And then they were kicked out of like the one place they were staying. So I did feel really bad about that. And like, they seem to have kind of cleared out, so I'm hoping maybe the shelters for the winter have opened up. But like, it just always makes me feel bad, and that especially made me feel really bad that there was just nothing I could do. It's like there's nothing I can do to help. So that was kind of a bummer, and it's just a bummer that the park is closed. But yeah, otherwise, kind of the theme of the past couple weeks have been like homework. I've had a lot of homework for the stats class that I'm taking, which thankfully is coming to an end. My last homework assignment is due this coming Friday, like Black Friday. So, yeah, that'll be nice to be done with that. We now also have another project that we have to do, so great. But like my group from last time was pretty good, so I'm working with the same group and hopefully it'll go pretty smoothly. But yeah, I've been doing that. I've been trying to get some stuff done, like work-wise, like to prepare for next semester, like kind of repairing some experiments that kind of had some wear on them during the semester and stuff like that, because we're also coming kind of to the end of the semester for the labs. And I have this one lab that is driving me crazy. So we have this lab that we use, or this setup that we use for both projectile motion and conservation of energy, that are these little cute spring cannons. And so like, you pull it back and you put a little ball bearing in it and you let it go, and it's like a little spring powered thing and it launches the ball out, and you can do all kinds of stuff with that. And the problem is, like, to use them for conservation of energy, you have to know what the spring constant of the spring inside is. And what the spring constant of a spring tells you is how much force it takes to compress the spring a given distance. And it's kind of a measure of like stiffness of the spring. So like, if you think about like a slinky, right? A slinky is not hard to like stretch and compress. That has a very low spring constant because you don't have to use a lot of force to compress it or stretch it. Versus like a spring in a garage door, or like the springs in like the struts of your car, those have a very high spring constant because it takes a lot of force to compress them any appreciable distance. So like that's what the spring constant is. And so if you want to do a conservation of energy lab, you have to know how the energy is being stored in that spring and then, converted into other types of energy. So I've been trying to measure the spring constant of these things, which involves taking the cannons apart, taking the springs out, and then you hang kind of like known weights on top of it and look at how far it stretches. Like you apply a force and you look at the distance that it stretches. And so this is what I had done originally, and I was getting just like, things that didn't make any, like I got spring constants, but then when I tried to do the calculations, it didn't make any sense. So then I redid the spring constants a different way, and then I was getting even more nonsensical answers. So now I redid it the original way, hanging, weights on it to stretch it. And I got about the same as what I got when I did it the first time. But then I realized that what I was not taking into account is that when the spring is in the barrel, it's already compressed a certain amount. So like I have to take that initial compression into account. But when I do that, I'm getting just like stupid calculations. Like it's predicting that like, oh, it'll fly like 3 meters, which is like 10 feet, which is definitely not the case. Like we're lucky if we can get 4 feet out of it. So I just don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it is endlessly frustrating. And it's just like, why? So yeah, that's been very annoying. And otherwise, we've just been kind of preparing to go up to DC for Thanksgiving. I think I've mentioned this, that we were planning on just spending the holiday up there, basically just to not have to adult for a couple of days. Like, We're just taking like 2 nights up there and just getting away from the city for a little while, or getting away from Richmond for a little while. Just taking a couple days to kind of recharge before that final sprint into the end of the semester. So, we've had our hotel for like a month now, I think. And I just booked train tickets yesterday. So it's like real, it's happening. I'm super excited about it. Because we're not really the kind of people that are going to like do the whole like Thanksgiving spread. We don't do Black Friday. So like, it'll be nice to just kind of do our own thing for a couple of days and just enjoy the holiday to ourselves. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think this will be a little bit longer episode than maybe some of the ones that I've been putting out, but hey, that's how it goes. So yeah, I'm gonna go do the Target thing. I'm actually kind of excited because Wesley is not home right now. He's on campus doing some homework, and he has like grad school applications that he's applying for next fall. And so, he's kind of got all of that stuff to do, but like I really, kind of just want to go wander around Target, like just do that, white girl in her mid-20s thing, just go wander around Target, maybe I'll get some Starbucks and just do that. But I'm super excited, and I used to do this a lot when I lived by myself when I was in grad school. Like every Friday I would after I would get down on campus, I would, go to Target, maybe wander around Target, pick up some groceries that I could only get there. And then the grocery store was like just a little bit down the street. So then I would go get my groceries. But it was just kind of this like leisurely thing I did. It was kind of like my version of shopping. It was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna, wander around and, kind of have a nice time. And I really enjoy that. And it's not that I don't enjoy hanging out with Wesley, and like I really love doing things with him. But like, especially right now when I can tell that he's like kind of stressed out and wants to be doing other things, the last thing I want to do is be like, yeah, come to Target while I just wander around and try on clothes that I don't want and look at shoes that I'm not going to buy. Like, I just don't want to do that with him. So I'm kind of glad that like he can go do his thing and I'm going to go do my thing, and it'll be nice. It'll be good. But yeah, so I'm going to do that. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks very much for hanging out with me this week, and I will see you guys later. Bye.